Birds of prey across the globe come in all different shapes and sizes, but one thing they all have in common is that they attack with their feet. Numerous avian species will indulge in carnivorous behaviour, including those many would not expect to do so, where they not only scavenge carcasses, but also actively hunt live prey as well. However, these birds are usually not fully carnivorous, as is the case with true birds of prey, and when it comes to hunting live animals, they almost always dispatch and dismember their prey using their beak. Contrary to popular belief, most bird of prey species do not directly attack using their beak, for while it is sharply hooked, it is usually only used for dismembering and consuming their prey after it is already caught. Unlike other bird species, birds of prey and owls rely on their very powerful feet and razor-sharp talons to capture and kill their prey, a unique physical feature in these groups of birds. Birds of prey are frequently referred to as raptors, which is derived from the Latin word rapio, meaning to seize or grasp, a reference to how these birds capture their prey using their feet. The talons are often defined as a claw used to pierce or impale. The feet and talons of diurnal raptors come in various different shapes and sizes, each uniquely suited to their specific hunting niche, where they are adapted to take on various different kinds of prey, with variations on how they actually capture and then kill their targets. The bird of prey family known as the kites, including species such as the red kite, black kite and this yellow-billed kite, are pretty large birds in their own regard, especially in terms of wingspan, but in relation to their body, they have surprisingly small feet. In fact, these raptors can have a wingspan between 4 and 5 feet across, and yet their footspan is said to be comparable to that of a female Eurasian sparrowhawk, a raptor less than a quarter of the size of an adult red kite. Kites still have sharp talons and a pretty strong grip, however, though their feet are best adapted for snatching relatively small prey items, ranging from large insects to small mammals and reptiles and even sometimes small birds, though they do feed a lot on carrion. Their raptorial feet and talons may not be as formidable as the more rapacious species, but they still capture quite a lot of the food that they consume, and species including the red kite are also known to be quite piratical, in that they will sometimes steal prey from other species, including other birds of prey. Similar-sized raptors such as hawks, buzzards and their relatives have considerably larger feet and talons and a more formidable grip, often enabling them to take on larger prey. Eagles have a very similar foot arrangement to hawks and buzzards, except of course they are usually much larger. The golden eagle, for instance, is especially formidable, with feet that can span roughly the size of a human hand, and talons that can reach 2 to 3 inches long in some of the larger specimens, which is about the same size as a lion's claws. However, the largest talons and feet of any living eagle belongs to the mighty harpy eagle from South America. As clearly visible from this image, the harpy has gigantic talons, comparable in length to a grizzly bear's claws, and it also possesses monstrous-looking feet, with a span exceeding that of a human hand, and legs as thick as a man's wrists. These formidable weapons are designed to seize and crush prey, which in the case of the harpy eagle consists of especially large mammals, and they can generate an incredible amount of force, but that we will discuss in more detail later on in this video. Unlike other bird of prey species, falcons do actually use their beak to sometimes dispatch their prey, having a characteristic feature known as the tomial tooth, used to bite through the necks of their prey, but even so, they still primarily rely on their taloned feet to capture and kill their quarry. The way they do so, however, is still slightly different to that of most hawks and eagles. Falcons certainly have very powerful feet, with an exceptionally strong grip as we will discuss later, though the gripping or crushing power of these feet compared to other raptors such as eagles and hawks, for example, is not their best known ability for capturing and killing their prey. Most falcon species, particularly the larger ones, are best known to deliver a devastatingly fast and powerful strike with their talons to dispatch their prey as quickly as possible, most notably when hunting other birds on the wing. This is best known, of course, in species like the peregrine, who have especially large talons and feet in relation to their body, as well as a reinforced hind toe and powerful shock-absorbing legs that enable them to withstand and deliver such devastating blows. Perhaps the most unique-looking foot design and hunting behaviour amongst these birds belongs to the African secretary bird. They have by far the longest legs of any diurnal bird of prey, with especially long and reinforced tarsi, that is the part of the foot between the base and the ankle. Secretary birds spend most of their time wandering across open savanna and desert plains on foot, hunting small terrestrial animals, including small rodents and especially lizards and snakes. Although still part of the bird of prey group, secretary birds belong to a different branch on this family tree, the only species assigned to a specific genus. Unlike eagles and hawks, which kill by grasping and puncturing their prey with their feet, secretary birds essentially kick and stomp small animals to death in a brutally swift and precise manner. They have relatively short and stout toes and talons, and when stomping upon a prey item such as a snake, for example, they often aim directly for the animal's head, often intending to pierce through the animal's spinal column or skull with their sharp hind talon. As well as being exceptionally quick and agile on their feet, secretary birds can also deliver a devastatingly powerful kick, claimed by some sources to be strong enough to fracture a human arm. As one can clearly tell from this selection of different species, diurnal birds of prey do have varying proportions on how their feet and talons are shaped, and therefore also differing in the way in which they capture and kill their quarry. One feature that all of these species, except for one, have in common, however, is the arrangement of their toes, for diurnal raptors have what is known as an anisodactyl foot design, that is, they have 3 toes pointing forward and 1 pointing backward. You can see this more clearly on this image of a bald eagle, where the front toes are used to grip hold of a perch in this case, or prey, and the hind toe, known as the hallux, opposes the front ones, aiding in maintaining the bird's grip and delivering most of the damage when seizing hold of a target. Owls, on the other hand, are quite different in this respect, for they have what is known as a zygodactyl foot shape, where they have 2 toes pointing forward and 2 pointing back, much more like the foot shape of other species of birds, including parrots and woodpeckers, for example, though they are sometimes able to switch to a more anisodactyl foot shape with the aid of a slightly more flexible outer toe on occasion. Many owl species are predators of small rodents and other terrestrial mammals, and so this foot arrangement is somewhat more effective for hunting this kind of prey more regularly. Many owl species will also have feet and toes covered in small feathers, almost resembling fur, which provides their feet with insulation from the cold, as well as from the potential biting and scratching of their prey and other sources of abrasions. This is different from the feet of nearly all diurnal raptor species, which are almost always completely bare of feathers and protected by thick scales. On some owl species, however, you can see the presence of small scales, which forms an almost grip pad-like surface, further aiding the owl when grasping struggling prey. Just like most diurnal birds of prey, owls use their talons and feet to crush and pierce their prey, with many of the world's larger species having an exceptionally powerful grip, though owls are sometimes observed to use their hooked beak to deliver a quick immobilizing bite before consuming their meals. There is one diurnal species of bird of prey, however, that is able to switch between a zygodactyl and an anisodactyl foot shape, and that is the osprey. This powerful fish-eating raptor has a reversible outer toe, which, along with other adaptations unique to this species, enables it to tackle especially large and slippery fish, and carry them out of the water, even if the fish itself weighs as much as the osprey. When looking at the more basal foot structure of a bird of prey, particularly those that have an anisodactyl foot shape, the hind talon or hallux is referred to as digit 1, the inner front toe digit 2, the middle toe digit 3, and the outer toe digit 4, each tipped of course with a talon. The length and shape of a bird's talons, along with the shape and proportion of the toes themselves, varies from species to species, and of course largely correlates to what the bird's diet is and how it hunts its prey, but also to other factors involved in the bird's everyday life. On almost all diurnal bird of prey species, the inner front toe or digit 2 seems thicker and more powerful than the other toes on the front of the foot, and often sports an especially long and sharp talon, which is used in conjunction with the hallux talon to deliver most of the gripping power and damage to the prey once it has been seized. On raptors that hunt mostly mammalian prey, the toes and talons appear to be somewhat thicker than on other species, better able to withstand the struggles of strong prey, and also to withstand potential bites or scratches. In the case of the Eurasian and Oriental honey buzzards, their talons, particularly on the front of their feet, are especially long and narrow, as well as being somewhat straighter in appearance than the more curved talons of other raptors. This enables honey buzzards to effectively rip apart and rake out large chunks of nesting material that makes up the hives of bees and wasps, enabling the birds to feed on the tasty larvae hiding inside. The Indian black eagle, not to be confused with the much larger black or Verreaux's eagle from Africa, is another species with quite uniquely shaped talons. As briefly touched on earlier, most diurnal raptors have a talon on digit 2 that is longer than on digit 3 on their feet, but this species takes it to another level, with an unusually long talon on this front toe, which is also quite unusually straight in appearance compared to the more curved talons of other species, resembling the elongated foot claws of the cassowary, the infamously large and dangerous species of flightless bird from Australia. This eagle hunts a lot of mammalian prey, including various rodent species and even young macaques, but they are also known to eat the eggs and chicks of other smaller birds, and it is assumed that as well as dispatching tough mammalian quarry, the long talons of this raptor enable it to snatch these prey items from birds' nests with great precision. The osprey, on the other hand, has much more sharply curved talons, probably more so than most other species, which enables it to hook into the tough scaly hides of fish. As well as having unusually long and sharply curved talons, and a reversible outer toe as mentioned earlier, which is quite unique to this species, ospreys have other adaptations designed for a mostly fish hunting lifestyle, including pointed scales on the underside of their toes known as spicules, which gives the underside of their feet an almost sandpaper-like texture, further enabling this raptor to grasp hold of slippery fish. Ospreys are also impressively strong birds physically speaking, and they quite regularly, as briefly touched on earlier, take on fish that can weigh just as much as themselves, and actually carry them out of the water after plunging in talons first to capture them in the first place. In most raptor species, such as this Harris hawk for example, the two front talons are especially long and pointed, perfectly suited for holding and piercing prey. But they also sport on the underside two very fine grooves almost resembling tiny blades, which are believed to help assist in causing extra penetration and damage when the talons are driven into the bodies of prey items. In the majority of species, the hind talon, known as the hallux, is the largest and strongest present on the raptor's foot, and works in conjunction with the opposing killing talon on the front toe, delivering most of the power required to drive into and dispatch prey quickly, piercing into vital organs and other structures. Hunting hawks used in falconry, as well as those in the wild of course, are both exceptionally strong but also very tactical with how they use their feet and talons when hunting. And as they mature and gain experience in the field, they quickly learn to improve their footing skills when tackling certain quarry, with a quick grab or bind to the head proving especially effective at immobilizing larger quarry in particular. The talon on digit 3 is not usually as long and as pronounced as that on digit 2, and while it certainly remains very sharp and assists with hunting prey, it also serves an especially important role in perching and also grooming feathers. On many of these species, there is an especially pronounced groove on the side of this talon, which is often used like a comb when the bird scratches itself, with some species even appearing to have a comb-like or serrated edge to this talon to further assist in preening feathers that the bird's beak could never reach. Even so, it is quite impressive sometimes watching these birds having a scratch, especially around the head area, and yet they remain completely unharmed despite the fact that they are doing this while using these lethal weapons attached to their feet. The talon on the outer toe, digit 4, is the smallest present on the bird's foot, and also largely plays a role in perching and preening feathers, though like all other talons on the foot, they are still utilised when grabbing prey if necessary. On certain species of diurnal raptors, particularly those that hunt other birds, you may also notice the presence of these small rounded lobes or protuberances on the underside of the raptor's toes. These are essentially gripping pads on the bird's feet, and are especially effective in raptors that specialise in hunting other birds, as they enable extra grip along with the talons when seizing feathered quarry, especially in the air. In certain species, including the peregrine for instance, these features may also play a role in withstanding heavy impacts. The exterior structure of a raptor's talons is pretty similar to that of the claws of other species, with the exterior of the talons themselves composed of a keratin sheath, similar to what is found in human fingernails, but is made up of a structure that makes it considerably harder and stronger, along with being vascularized and continuously growing. The keratinized exterior of the talon conceals the bony interior, which is similar in shape too, but about half the size of the talon with the keratin sheath attached. In both birds of prey and owls, the main blood supply to the foot is provided by the dorsal metatarsal arteries, with a varying number of different veins and other blood vessels within the foot, depending on the species. However, as is the case with many other avian species, these feet are surprisingly less vascularized than one would expect. In some cases, this may prove to be a slight advantage, especially if you're a raptor that hunts mostly venomous snakes, for example, as it may reduce the possibility of a dangerous amount of venom entering the bloodstream. On the flip side, however, this means that bird of prey feet do take quite a long time to heal in some cases, with wounds sometimes being prone to infection. Beneath the skin, of course, raptor legs and feet are reinforced by especially strong ligaments and tendons overlaying an especially resilient skeletal structure. The flexor and extensor tendons in the feet are perhaps the most significant in maintaining a raptor's incredibly powerful and prolonged grip. The flexor tendons, as highlighted in red in this diagram, have distinctive ridges running along them, and these play a vital role when the bird is attempting to grasp and hold on to something. When grasping prey or landing on a perch, the flexor tendons are stretched and pull the toes tightly into a flex position, tightening the hold. The bird's weight further increases the grip. As their grip tightens, the pronounced ridges on the flexor tendons lock the toes and talons into place, as they are linked to a ridged sheath running over them. This locking mechanism is what enables a bird of prey or other raptor to grasp hold of prey or a branch and remain in this position holding on for a near indefinite amount of time with very little effort, as their feet are able to remain effectively closed with virtually no muscular intervention. When the bird eventually decides that it wants to let go, the outer sheath is pulled away from the ridged flexor tendon, enabling the grip to be released. This kind of ratcheting mechanism is found in pretty much all diurnal birds of prey as well as owls, and in conjunction with their oversized and very sharp talons, is a vital component in enabling them to be such effective hunters. While this ratcheting mechanism is going on in the bird's feet, raptors also dramatically bend their legs when grasping hold of prey to maximize the efficiency of their grip, with the bending of the knee and ankle also seeming to have an increased effect on closing the toes tighter together. Once again, this grip is designed to remain in place for as long as possible while maintaining a tremendous amount of pressure, and can only be effectively released once the bird straightens its leg again. In many ways, the feet of raptorial birds do work in quite a similar way to the feet of perching birds or passerines, but of course they are much more specialised for a life of hunting as well as perching, with these birds of course being endowed with a much more powerful grip. In both cases, the majority of the musculature is positioned close to the underside of the body at the top of the leg, whereas most of the foot itself is made up mostly of tendons. When properly locking onto a perch or a prey item in the case of a raptor, the bird's body weight is essentially helping maintain the grip, with less muscular effort on maintaining the grip of the toes as you would expect. This is clearly quite different from the mechanism involved in our hands, for example, where most of the effort of grasping something with your fingers is done by the muscles running along the arm. The grip may initially be pretty strong, but sooner or later, the muscles attached to the arm maintaining this grip will eventually fatigue, particularly when the arm is extended for long periods of time, and the hand will be forced to release its hold. And of course, we lack the ratcheting mechanism helped by spiky flexor tendons that birds of prey all possess. With these specialised anatomical features, birds of prey are near perfectly adapted for grasping and holding on to struggling prey with a grip that cannot be released easily at all, holding the prey item in place while simultaneously delivering a tremendous amount of pressure designed to drive those giant talons into vital areas of the quarry, killing it instantly. As briefly touched on earlier, the mechanism in these feet and legs can be seen to a similar, albeit less extreme extent, in the feet of perching birds or songbirds, known as passerines, explaining how they are able to stand on one foot on a single branch, even when sleeping. In fact, this mechanism is somewhat similar to that seen in bats, which aids this unrelated group of animals in hanging upside down, whether from a branch or a rocky cave ceiling, using only their clawed toes. In falconry terminology, a bird that has a tendency to lock on with its feet, especially when on the glove, is known as sticky-footed. When looking at certain fishing species of raptors, for instance, the actual level of control these birds have over their raptorial grip is sometimes called into question. It is often stated that young and inexperienced ospreys will plunge into the water and grab hold of especially large fish that can be too heavy even for the ospreys to pull out of the water themselves. With their talons locked upon this slippery target, however, the young birds, seemingly unable to let go, are sometimes pulled underwater by the struggling fish and drown. While this probably has happened at least a few times in the wild, in many cases, however, ospreys are observed to release the hold they have on a fish if they decide it is not worth tackling. The insanely powerful gripping strength of raptors, however, is perhaps their most notable claim to fame when describing these predatory birds. The red tail, for instance, one of the largest and most powerful of North America's bootios, is said to have a gripping strength of up to 250 pounds per square inch. The gripping power of many falcon species is not usually as notable as that of similar sized or slightly larger hawks and eagles, but their grip is still impressively strong and they are still able to lock onto prey and never let go. However, as mentioned earlier, it is not so much the gripping strength of large falcons or even smaller ones that makes their hunting ability so effective, it is rather their ability to strike or snatch prey at high speed. The most impressive statistics in the respect of gripping power, however, belong to the larger eagle species. The golden eagle, for example, is said to have a gripping strength of up to 750 to a whopping 1,000 pounds per square inch in the case of some specimens, roughly 10 times more powerful than the grip of the average human hand. Even more incredible is the gripping strength of the mighty harpy eagle, possibly the most powerful living species of eagle, with one source claiming that this impressive bird can exert up to 2,000 pounds worth of pressure exerted to the point of its massive talons. Just for context, this is multiple times the pressure of a Rottweiler's bite, and comparable if not slightly higher than the bite forces of some sharks. Much of what has been described so far with birds of prey still applies in a large part to the owls, but there are obviously still crucial differences. As mentioned before, owls have a zygodactyl foot arrangement, with 2 toes pointing forward and 2 pointing backwards, opposing each other on either side, and the talons on each side of the foot seem to be more or less the same length. This foot arrangement makes for a slightly more effective and secure grip, especially since owls hunt a lot of terrestrial mammalian prey, particularly rodents. When they lock their talons on a prey item, their grip functions in much the same way as diurnal raptors, although there is a slight difference in how their legs orientate. More specifically, when they grasp hold of prey, each talon more or less rolls over, with their feet appearing to rotate somewhat more inward when gripping tightly. The larger species of owls, particularly the eagle owls and their relatives, have especially large feet and talons, and are more or less apex predators in their respected ecosystems. These particular birds have a gripping power second only to the largest and most powerful eagles in terms of the intense pressure they can generate, with species such as the great horned and Eurasian eagle owls said to be able to grip with over 200 to up to 600 pounds per square inch of pressure, enabling these birds to hunt a wide range of avian and mammalian prey, which in the case of the Eurasian eagle owl, for example, can include animals up to the size of foxes or even small deer. Even some of the smallest owl species can be surprisingly rapacious hunters, often tackling prey as big as themselves, notably species such as the pygmy owl and the pearl-spotted owlet. These 2 species are among the smallest in the world by owl standards, and yet because of their surprisingly large feet and talons, they can tackle rodents and birds that one wouldn't initially expect such a dainty species to tackle on its own. With all of these unique aspects to their anatomy, along with all the unique physical specializations between different species, it's clear that birds of prey are perfectly adapted to hunt a wide range of quarry, whether big or small, with many species being physically capable of single-handedly taking down prey as big or even bigger than the bird itself, making these birds, along with the owls, among the most formidable and successful predators in nature.